From WDWNT, the worldwide leader in Disney Parks news, this is ParksCenter. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of ParksCenter. My name's Ben, and joining me tonight we have Allison. Muted? Frozen. Oh no.
Oh, there she is.
Are we back?
Oh. She's back.
We're back. Hi, Allison.
Hi.
We also have Jill.
Hello.
Hello.
We've got Rob.
What's up, guys?
And Pete.
Sivaco. What a good
did it.
Wednesday to be joining all of you.
Indeed. And what a big week for news, eh? We had a
we
New
got
York
something.
Times we had a New York Times story drop this week that we wrote a big write-up on our blog about, titled "Bob Iger takes CEO responsibilities back from Chapek and the Disney Company downsizing expected once dust settles from the pandemic." This is kind of a big deal. Like, if you go down and look at some of the highlights in here, Mr. Iger smoothly reasserted control over a Blue Jeans video call, which is essentially Zoom, but supposedly slightly more secure. The new nominal chief executive is referred to as Bob C, while Mr. Iger is still just Bob, and his title is executive chairman, emphasis on the executive. This feels like backseat CEO driving. Like, are we not happy with the job Chapek's doing, so we're having like Iger kind of like hold his hands here?
Well, I mean, you can't judge the job that Bob Chapek is doing when he's only been in this position for like a handful of weeks, and he's doing it in like the most unprecedented time for everyone, but obviously.
Or can America. We?
Well, so here's the thing. Here's my issue with all of this. I feel like if you read that New York Times article, nothing in that New York Times article specifically states Bob Iger is taking the CEO position back from Bob Chapek. Bob Chapek is still the CEO of the Walt Disney Company. And there have been other things that have been published that say explicitly that. We just heard today that Bob Chapek is now on the Disney board of directors. He's been elected to the board of directors. The CEO, like they specifically say in the articles that talk about this, that Bob Chapek is the CEO. So all of this is based on one New York Times article that this guy, Ben Smith, wrote. And everything else you will read, if you Google this on the internet, everything else you will read cites this New York Times article. That is the only information that we have saying any of this. Now, I'm not trying to say that means that Bob Iger is not asserting a lot more control all of a sudden. I think that makes total sense. A guy who ran the company for 15 years needs to be exerting some level of influence when the company is going through what it's going through right now. But that doesn't mean he's like, to say that means that there's like not a lot of confidence in Bob Chapek, I think, or that they sort of like regret giving him the job is a lot of assumptions. And it's not like anybody else has published this article. Like, if you look in any other like major financial or major national newspaper, they haven't run with this article because nobody else has information. Nobody else has any other evidence other than this New York Times article to talk about it. So I think it makes sense that Iger's asserting a lot of control, but I think to make any other assumptions about this is a whole lot of speculation.
I mean, how great is this for Bob Iger? Because, like, if the company just falls apart, he, like, handed off the reins. Yes, it's unprecedented, but he left at the right time. There's nothing he could do. Meanwhile, if he does not come back, but let's say all of a sudden Disney, like, bounces back from this, they fight through this, and between now and the end of the year, they get back on track or they have things in place. People are going to be like, that was Iger. Like, he stepped back in, he took control, he did the right thing. So, like, for me, this is like this is a no-lose for Iger. And Chapek this is brutal for Chapek no matter what. I don't see how Chapek, to be honest, ever fully recovers from this. I think he won't be one of these long-term CEOs. He will be a short-term CEO. It's my personal opinion, but Yeah, and then obviously we posted the other article today that he was voted onto the board, but that's standard. The CEO is normally voted onto the board of a company. So like that isn't anything that really is newsworthy per se. That's what happens with CEOs. So I don't think we should look at that and be freaking out like, oh, this is a good sign or a bad sign or what happened here. That's kind of standard procedure. The only thing that's not is having Iger step down as fast as he did. That is the one thing that still no one knows why then or how he put that into place so quickly. But he was supposed to stick around for a much longer and then just poof was like, I'm out. Anything happens with the company that's bad, it's not me. I'm going out on top. See you later. And then Corona hits. And obviously, like, you know, I'd be okay with all this happening now, but that's when we had boats sinking on the Jungle Cruise and everything else falling apart around Walt Disney World. But now we have much crazier times.
Well, you know what, Pete, you were saying that, like, timing-wise, I mean, it does seem like a very calculated thing on Bob Iger's part because he knew Corona was coming. I mean, it was already in effect before this happened. It was kind of like a beautiful time for him. And I'd love to think that this was just totally strategic and that there's not something else behind the scenes as to why he's stepping down, because I do like the guy. I know that he's not always the most popular, but yeah, exactly. So I am a fan, and so I like him. I think this would be a brilliant strategic move if this is actually what was happening. But to your point about Bob Chapek, this is a no-win situation for him. That if they come out well, especially after this story, it's going to be, well, Bob Iger helped them out of it. And if it comes out poorly, it'll be, well, it was Bob Chapek's fault. So, I mean, it's almost like he has no way to win this at all. And I mean, as long as the company comes out of it, I'm okay either way. But for him, it's going to be it's tough. I mean, I don't know how he could recover from that.
I just want to jump in quick to this whole, like, the timing was suspicious and did Bob Iger kind of plan? Because I know there's been a ton of speculation about that. If you read the New York Times article, that aspect of it is actually one of the things I found the most interesting about it, because as the author was talking to people inside Disney, people were saying to the author, the question is not, did Bob Iger see coronavirus coming and get out while he could? The question to ask is, like, why was Bob Iger so distracted? Like, they're basically asserting Bob Iger was so distracted by the idea of trying to figure out who is going to succeed him that he wasn't paying attention to just how bad coronavirus was and what the potential threat could be to the company. So that was the part I found most interesting, because, I mean, you think about it, he's acting now like, I love Disney and I'm going to be there for Disney and try to help them through this crisis. If that's how he's been feeling all along, why would he have stepped down when this was, like, at his doorstep? So I think the interesting thing is, was Bob Iger really paying attention that much to what was going on? Did he have a real concept that this was as big of a threat to the Walt Disney Company as a whole as it has turned out to be?
Jeez. What a mess.
I mean, really, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think the article also points out the fact that just about everything that Disney does, whether it's the parks, the cruise lines, the movies that require you, like, not require, but so much of movie profit comes from box office, which requires people to go to the movie theater. So almost everything that Disney does, short of merchandising, and even that's affected because factories are shut down, so much of what Disney does is affected by the coronavirus. And if Bob Iger had any awareness that was coming, I don't think he would have stepped down when he did, or at least an awareness of how significant it was going to be.
Right. Oh, boy.
Or he really knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That's exactly what I was going to say. Exactly that yes, maybe he absolutely knew what he was doing.
Because this coronavirus thing, yeah, I mean, like, you know, you see how, like, Bill Gates predicted it, and also in certain circles, you know, if you read his book, he says he was very close with Steve Jobs and a few other, and he's friends with very intelligent people in high places. This whole Wuhan coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, started back in, like, November, December. So, like, if he saw this coming and knew that it was going to be a pandemic, he bounced in February. I don't know. Or there's other reasons too. I'm just saying he definitely got out in front of it.
Yeah, but that could so easily come back and bite you if it was like you knew this was coming and you bailed on Disney.
Mm-hmm.
But how? But
Like,
again, is that what people said? It wasn't spun that way. The
But
guy,
it's a risk.
It was absolutely spun as Bob Iger knew this was coming and got out while he could. It was absolutely spun that way.
but people are still saying like all hail Bob Iger.
I mean, I guess you defeat the spin if you
confidence.
put somebody in the office that is inferior to yourself, so that you can come back and save the day.
Right. And I mean,
Yeah.
legitimately, when they put Bob Chapek in office, they said, like, he has been studying under Bob Iger. Bob Iger is going to continue to support him. Like, this isn't that far afield from what they said was going to happen at the time.
Yeah.
Just was very precarious. I don't know. Blah, 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 blah.
Very, very precarious. I like that. Well, another precarious fact that we've got on our hands is that the Norway and Germany cultural representative programs are accepting applications for positions starting in August, which indicates that there's at least a decent amount of confidence that the parks are going to be open in August. So hey, we've got something that's showing that.
Well,
Disney's
they're
putting
taking
some money
reservations for June. They're letting you book fast pass. Like, I mean, all signs are pointing that Disney is going to be firing things up. They want to open as soon as they can.
Oh, for sure.
So, I mean, I'm still hoping because of my financial bets. I'm going to lose the one for May. I have 2 for June 1st or 2nd, and I have 1 for August. So I'm hoping June 1st. Let's rock and roll. But, I mean, this had to happen eventually, too, because, you know, if you watch all these videos all over YouTube and whatnot, everyone's talking about, like, what Disney would need to do to, like, reopen the parks. And, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot, but I'm sure they are ready to go at the drop of a hat. Because, yeah, you gotta get all the food in there. You got to get your cast members back in town. You got to make sure everyone's well-trained. You got to teach them to go above and beyond. Here's the new things we're doing. So, yeah, I mean, for August, great, but I'm hoping it's before that. But I don't see – I don't know, and maybe one of you guys do, when they normally send out, because they are constantly bringing people in for the pavilions from around the world at certain times of the year. I know I was talking with a guy from the Italy pavilion a few months ago about how he like re-ups at a certain time every either year or every 2 years or 3 years, whatever it is. But I wonder if August is the normal time for this, or if this just is a story because of the whole parks reopening.
I mean, I'm pretty sure this is only really a story because it's an indicator of the parks reopening. But also the fact that, if I remember correctly, a lot of these programs, both the college program and the cultural representatives, were all sent home recently. So seeing that they're inviting people back, at least for a couple countries, is definitely a good sign for the future of those programs as a whole.
Well, my question
if they want
about
people
that
for
would
the
be
Italy pavilion, they can just go to Staten Island. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
if they send everybody home, then what's going to happen between, like, if they do open between June and August?
That's really the question.
They're doing a staggered. Everyone is saying that they're going to do a staggered opening anyway, so it's not like you need a full staff. You need enough staff for this staggered opening, whether that's only certain parks open or limited hours or certain attractions or certain areas of the park. I'm sure they can make do. You know, they're the largest single-site employer in North America here. So, like, they have a staff that I'm sure is ready and willing to come back to work. As it is, unions are fighting for, you know, Disney would much rather, instead of fighting with unions and worrying about everything else, say, come back to work. And then if we're short a few thousand bodies from our international and our college program, we'll fire those up. We'll have people here in no time. But they can definitely open the doors in a limited capacity.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very good sign that they're bringing the program back, and I think because there's so much more, obviously there's so much more involved in someone coming from Norway or Germany to come to America, and you know there's moving, even if it's temporary, there's all kinds of paperwork and visas and stuff. So it's going to take them time to get this stuff into place. And they don't want to do it too early because they don't want to bring these people over here in June and then be like, oh, well, we can't open the park yet. So I think August is them hedging their bets about something that's a little bit of more of an involved process. But I think Pete's absolutely right. They've got enough staff on site that, especially because this is probably going to be a staggered reopening, they're going to be able to run the parks with the staff that they have in Orlando to the extent that they're going to need to until August gets here, I think.
Orlando.
Yeah, I mean that was not my question though about whether they were going to be able to open the park, but what they were going to do with these pavilions that are known for having people from their native countries in them. I know there are people who cross train and stay behind, and instead of going back, they take a full-time job with Disney and they work somewhere else within the parks. So I guess you could do that, or maybe you just open them with all the the regular staff members with the flag shirts and not the people that are actually from the countries. That was my only thing, is like what would the countries themselves not look like, not what would they be able to open the parks or not. So
I mean, I don't think it's going to make or break anybody's decision to go to Epcot of whether the people staffing the countries for the next couple of months are from the actual country or not. Like, everybody wants to see that, but it's not going to stop me from dropping everything and going to Disney World when the parks reopen.
Yeah, well,
That's fair.
I hope all the pavilions are mixed up. Like, I hope they just there's a bunch of Jamaicans in Italy and a bunch of Cubans over in Canada, and we're just having fun. People trying to figure out what's going on.
Pull the ripcord on this conversation. Pull the ripcord, Ben.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of this cultural mishmash though, of just they could pass it off as this is a statement about how we're all one world together right now, fighting this thing
They're
together.
What's up, man? You want some Prosecco? Lord of mercy.
Oh man, well, Lord have mercy on the fact that the Walt Disney Company cannot come up with an original film idea. There is another live-action remake coming, this time for Disney's Robin Hood, because that everybody knows that this film is so well known for its story and not for its art.
So just FYI, Ben, the next topic on our list is 2 original movies being produced.
Okay, fair. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Robin Hood.
I'm struggling with this because I love Robin Hood and I really don't want to see it get Lady and the Tramp, or Lion King, or whatever you want to call it. I feel like Disney did a couple of good live action remakes and everything else has been a swing and a miss. And I can't picture this being good. I don't know how.
Hey Joe, what did you think of the live action Lady and the Tramp?
I watched the first 15 minutes. I watched the first 15 minutes of it and turned it off because it was terrible.
You gave up, okay, but you.
And I did the same with the Lion King.
You don't want them to
I watched
Lady and
the
the Tramp
beginning of it. I don't want this to be a movie that I watch the first 15 minutes of and turn it off because it's bad.
What about live action Song of the South?
Oh no.
No.
Now pull the ripcord.
Okay.
It's already live action enough. That's like saying a live action Mary Poppins, honestly. It's.
Here's the thing: is that Disney will just keep doing things until they learn their lesson. We saw this with them breaking out 2-3 Star Wars movies a year, and all of a sudden they were like, "This is too much. Let's pull it back to 1 a year," and now they're successful again. Same thing with these remakes. I feel like once the crowd stopped going, and it's just another remake and another live action remake, and people stop tuning in, they'll be like, "Oh, then we should just save this for our classics once in a blue moon, and let's come up with some more original ideas," which again will then get sequels. Frozen, the original idea, then they had Frozen 2, then they had this special for Christmas. I mean, so it's really on us. It's when the numbers say, hey, stop doing this, that's when Disney will shift gears or put something else in the tank. We'll see what happens with this management mix-up. I feel like in the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to see Disney films being mixed up a little bit more as well.
Yeah, that's a really solid point. If you don't like these movies, stop going to see them. If you don't give them your money, they won't make any more.
But there's still some that people are excited about, though. I mean, people are very excited about the idea of a live-action Little Mermaid. I mean, and Lin-Manuel Miranda's involved with it. And so I do think there are some of them that people are still excited about. And there's probably a budgetary reason behind the scenes, because when they go to look at Disney Plus and making original content, there's got to be a ton of options they have, especially after having purchased Fox, I mean, a ton of things they can do. They can, do a series on Night at the Museum. They can do a ton of different things. So there's got to be a reason that they're doing this economically. Like it probably makes sense to them because they already have the story. They just need to, do a new treatment. They've, I think that there's a possibility that this one could be good, or it could be, okay. I don't think it's going to be great. I think it could be okay, or it's going to be a complete train wreck. So they're talking about doing Stitch. Yeah, it's going.
Are they doing direct to Disney Plus, or are they doing?
Yes.
Or is this going to theaters?
No, Disney Plus.
Oh, okay, I guess that makes more sense because Robin doesn't even have that huge following that you would see from, like Beauty and the Beast or Lion King or the other live action remakes we've seen. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna run to Disney Plus the day this comes out. This will be like there's nothing on TV. It's the end of the night. I'm trying to fall asleep. Maybe situation.
Yeah,
There's not even a Robin Hood ride in any of the parks, right? Is there a Robin Hood ride in any park?
No, it was in March Madness.
There's almost topiaries in the UK Enchanted Forest hedge
so
maze.
It doesn't even play
built
into the parks unless they're trying to fit this into a park somewhere. And they were like, well, if we put a live action remake on Disney Plus, maybe we can use this for a meet and greet or an attraction or something.
There's not really any Lady and the Tramp in the parks either, and short of Tony's Town Square.
Town Square?
Yeah, but that's not really.
That's also bad.
I guarantee you that
Albert.
if you survey 100 park guests and ask them what Disney movie Tony's Town Squares is based on, they will not be able to tell you that it's Lady and the Tramp. I guarantee you that.
That's the only reason I went there years ago, before I worked for this company, and I kind of want to go back just to do it. But I knew it was Lady and the Tramp because I went there with the person I was with just to do the spaghetti and, a little kissy kiss, little romantic moment. That's the only reason I went to Tony's, because it was Lady and the Tramp. But then, yeah.
They do have some stuff. They have the stuff in the cement out in front. They've got the statue in the middle of the restaurant. They play the movie on a loop in the lobby. There are things that they do to show that it's tied in without it being in your face. So,
it would be cool.
But again, there could be other reasons for this. There's probably was a resurgence of interest in the Lady and the Tramp animated film when the Lady and the Tramp live action came out, and they could probably have that same thing happen with Robin Hood. But Jill said she liked the original Robin Hood movie, and she hopes they don't mess it up. I think a lot of people actually have a soft spot for this movie because I think it's a very charming little movie. So it'll be interesting to see what direction they take with it. If they try to make it a shot for shot like Lion King was, or if they try something a little more out of the box and a little bit more adventure driven out of it. So. I'm open to see it. It's not going to cost me anything.
A lot of the 1% stealing from the rich, giving to the... Okay. I don't know.
Gosh. Are we...
I'm just saying. By the way, can I just say this? No. It would be cool that we're missing... I want an accordion player outside of Tony's when I'm walking into the park, and he's kind of barking, and there's a menu out front. Anyway, that's it.
Entertainment's the first thing that gets cut, right?
I know. I understand. I can live my dream.
Rob, I'm sorry, I just have to say this. All I can think after that description of that is that they're going to have a cameo from Bernie Sanders as Bertie Sanders.
No, you didn't have to say that, Ben. You didn't.
No, I did. You made me do it.
You didn't have to. Just one more thing on piggyback on what Pete said. Do you realize how many Disney characters play the accordion? It's kind of crazy.
Oh, wow.
Geppetto's got one, and Prince Eric's got one, and it's Tony's got
There's
one.
There's not enough of accordion presence in the parks for all these movies. You're right.
Yeah,
right, yeah.
We need accordions in the park.
Be an accordion player in the park. Let's
Someone
make it
call
happen.
Weird Al. He'll do it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Moving from one movie that should be animated to two that are, but unfortunately are going to be delayed. Disney and Pixar's Soul has been delayed at this point. It was supposed to be coming out on June 19th. Makes sense that that's now getting moved to November 20th. And also Raya and the Last Dragon, which was supposed to come out, I believe, late this year, has now been postponed to March 12th of 2021. So that is almost a full year away at this point. I was honestly pretty excited for both of these. Like Soul being a Pixar film that very clearly looks like it wants you to cry like the entire movie. I am super on board with that. And
Pete Docter
Raya and the
movie,
Last
too.
Dragon, like any movie that's got a dragon in it, I'm sold. So like that's the beginning and the end of it for me.
Pete
They showed
Docter and
footage
Jonas
at-
Rivera. Oh, I'm sorry.
They
Go
showed
ahead.
footage at D23 of Raya, and it looks like it's going to be an epic movie. I'm very excited for this one, and I think it could be the beginning of a big deal. So I'm sad that it's been moved, but at the same time, I'm glad they're moving these movies because I'd rather see them in the theater. You know, there was a big kind of push when coronavirus shut everything down to take movies like Trolls World Tour and some of these other things and put them direct to to pay-per-view instead of actually waiting to release them. And so I thought that was going to happen with Mulan and Black Widow, and I'm glad it didn't, because I think those are going to be movies that are going to make a big splash in the theater. So I'm excited that they're holding off for those and kind of give them the right treatment rather than rush them to like have people pay for them and kind of undercut them. So I think with these two movies, the same thing, and I think they're waiting for next spring for Raya because it's probably going to be a pretty big deal movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think a lot of this is they've clearly made some decisions of stuff they're pushing to Disney Plus, like Artemis Fowl, and they did Onward last week or 2 weeks ago. It tells me that they have a lot of confidence in these films, that they would rather wait and play the long game and reap a bigger benefit by waiting to be able to put them in the theaters. I too am very excited about Raya. I definitely have a bias towards Disney films as opposed to Pixar films, and as this is, the first one we've seen in a little while, I'm very excited. Well, the first new animated movie that we've seen in a little while, that wasn't a sequel. I'm pretty excited for that. So I will want to go see this in the theater, and I'm glad I'll have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
I was super excited for Soul just because, again, written and directed by Pete Docter, and I'm a huge Pete Docter fan. I feel like everything he touches is fantastic. Great cast: Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, Felicia Rashad, among a bunch of others. Angela Bassett, I think, is in it. So I was really excited for this, and I totally agree with your point. I love seeing movies in theaters. It is so much better than seeing them at home. So I am totally okay with them pushing this. I had no idea anything about Raya and Pete's Dragon or whatever it is. So I'm okay with them pushing that. But it'll be exciting for when it comes around, and I'll be excited to see it when it happens. But yeah, I really, really, really want to see Soul, and I guess now I have to wait until mid-November for that. Boo!
Pete, I didn't think you saw movies.
I started seeing movies once I moved to Florida. I got the AMC pass for Disney Springs. I see 4 movies a month. That's right.
Wow.
Not
So that
sponsored.
way, me 20 years from now, like anything you say from the 80s or 90s, I haven't seen. But me, you catch up to me in 20 years, I've seen everything.
And you got plenty of time now to catch up on those movies on Netflix, which is
God, I
now
hate
worth
watching
more
movies.
than the Walt Disney Company.
Oh. Yeah, this is
King of
crazy.
Transitions pulling it back over here.
You did a
that's-
glorious job with that transition. I think you did a fantastic
this
job.
is a bit of a shocker to me. Like, granted, Netflix for sure is taking off and Disney's taking a hit right now, but it kind of blows me away that Disney being as diversified as it is, investors still would value Netflix higher than Disney at this point in time. That's just shocking to me.
It blows my mind. That's why I talked about this before we went on the air, and I was like, we need to make this a story, because think about it. Like, this is saying Netflix, literally the company, is worth more than the Disney company. IP wise, yeah, they started their own studio recently, and they have some stuff that they own, but like they don't own any real estate or parks. They don't have any real IP going back more than 3 years, maybe 5 years. Disney has IP going back, almost 100 years at this point. It's crazy to me. And then Disney just acquired Fox. Like, how do you value Netflix more than the entire Walt Disney World company and its umbrella, like ESPN, like all these, everything that Disney owns, and just Netflix? And I agree, Netflix is like essential right now. What people be doing without Netflix? But I mean, it's just a streaming service. Disney has one, and also that is crushing with 50 million people already subscribed. The fact that that I think Netflix is for sure right now a sell. As an investor. But again, don't take my advice. But
none of what we're
totally
saying
take
is
my
financial
advice.
advice. We are not financial advisors. This is all speculation. Please do not act on this information.
I also,
without
and
doing
again,
your
if I'm
own
an investor
research.
too, like Disney, like how do they recover from this? This is a monster recovery. And what if this happens again? What if pandemics happen more regularly now that we're not prepared? This was a big eye-opening thing. When will people, even if everything goes back to quote unquote normal, people are going to be financially devastated for the next year or two. People will be afraid about going out without vaccines. I mean, this is going to be tough for the Disney company, but in no world do I think Netflix should be worth more than Disney. That's all I have to
This
say.
is just evidence that money and value is all completely made up. Like everything you know about the economy and what a dollar is worth is all completely made up and based on like public an idea. There's no basis in reality whatsoever. Like even like the idea of like a gold standard and like the dollar is or is not tied to like gold. Like gold is only worth money because we say it's worth money. Like anything is only worth money because we say it is. And this is just evidence of how I think that can get really distorted, especially when people are kind of going a little crazy. Like I get that the average person is thinking that Netflix is more important and more valuable right now because it's what they're doing. But to think that overall Netflix is a company that doesn't actually own anything. You know, it owns some servers with some stuff on them, with some bits and bytes and zeros and ones on them, as opposed to the Walt Disney Company that owns lots of actual things that you can touch and hold in your hand all around the world.
They've got
not to mention like
tracts of land.
Huge tracts of land. Not to mention like intellectual properties that like are not just are worth so much money long term. Like Star Wars is going to give Disney money and be a source of money for Disney, just like Marvel is going to be a source of money for Disney for decades to come. Like Netflix doesn't own a single IP that has that kind of potential. Here's
what I think is weird too, though.
Go ahead, Rob, and I'll jump in afterwards. I was going to say, Joel put in the chat,
Rob,
that Netflix is pandemic proof and clearly Disney isn't. But again, like, what's the next disaster? Like, what if the internet went out? What if someone with the internet? Like, and we only had to go to public places.
Shame on
like,
you.
You're going to Disney. Like, I know, I'm just saying, but like, what would Netflix be if we couldn't sign on to the internet for 3 months? Like, then there goes your company. Like, you go back to DVDs. Like, there's something for everything, is all I'm saying. And the fact that you say that Netflix is worth more than, or not you per se, Joel or whoever else, but the investors say that this company is worth more than Disney right now blows my mind. Sorry, Rob.
Well, here's the thing that drives me crazy is that Disney owns not one but two streaming services because they own Hulu now. So, you've got Hulu and you've got Disney Plus, and they bought Fox, and they are bringing a lot of that stuff away from Netflix as they go. So a lot of the things you used to be able to get on Netflix, you will not be able to get on Netflix as we go through, as they start, the contracts start ending, and they pull off all the Star Wars, and they pull off all the Marvel, and they pull off all the Disney cartoons. They're going to not have that stuff. So the fact that Disney has all of that stuff, they own the IP, to Jill's point, and then on top of that, they have Hulu. They should be dominating. It should be like they have twice as much value, and all these parks and all these the IPs that are out there. So it does not seem to make any sense, except for the fact that what Disney does have are liabilities. So they've got these parks that are sitting here that are going stale. They've got all of these cast members that they have to put on furlough. They have a lot of things that they have to deal with that Netflix doesn't have to change right now. So the fact that Netflix is kind of perceived as higher, I do kind of get that, but I think that down the road, Netflix will probably start to dwindle a little bit as Disney Plus picks up and they pick up more of the IPs that are theirs and they bring them over. But it is crazy that they own two streaming services versus one, and all the other properties they own, and ABC and ESPN, and they're not valued at higher.
Yeah,
I know this isn't how current valuations of companies work, but 20 years from now, we will all still be going to Walt Disney World. 20 years from now, you will not still be watching Netflix.
I don't know about that.
It feels.
Bookmark it.
I'm gonna hold that conversation for the post show though, because that seems like a really good one to have. But we've got to move along here because we've got a couple other things that we need to cover.
Yep, exactly. 20 years ago, you were watching VHS.
Fair. So first off, just a bit of a correction, or not really a correction, but an update. Last week we talked a lot about Avengers Campus and how the opening of that had not been delayed. As of 5 days ago, it has now been delayed. So we were correct when we said that, but it has since changed. This is now going to be opening on July 18th of 2020. I'm sorry, was going to be opening on July 18th. Is now postponed until who knows. It is saying coming soon on the website. So we don't know when that'll happen.
Maybe it will be postponed until they actually open the e-ticket ride.
Yeah, maybe that'd be a good idea.
Oh, fudge. I'm flabbergasted.
Oh, boy.
All I'm saying is I called this last week. I said last week there's no way it was open in July 18th.
Mm-hmm. And that is going to do it for the bulk of the news for this week. Let's real quick go over what else is coming up. Right now we are trying to run 2 live shows a day at an absolute minimum. Today, Wednesday, April 15th, we're running ParksCenter right now. Tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. we have Party with Pete. Pete, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so tomorrow I got Kat Cressida on. She, as you can see from the graphic, is the voice of the Haunted Mansion's bride, Constance Hatchaway. She also does the voice of, as you can see there, Jessie. She's Dee Dee in Dexter's Laboratory. Her father worked with Imagineering in California when she was growing up as a kid. She did a TED Talk. Yeah, she's a very famous voice artist. She's been all over ESPN as well as a bunch of other animated series and video games and a ton of stuff for Disney. So we're going to get into all of that. We're doing a 2-hour interview tomorrow. First hour of the show, we're going to have some fun, do our normal banter, talk with the chat. We have a little topic we're going to discuss as well from 11 to noon. And then from noon to 2, we're talking with Kat Cressida, and she wants a Q&A with the chat. So make sure you are in the chat. You have those questions ready. Awesome. Or you can email me, pete@wdwnt.com. But yeah, please tune in tomorrow, 11 to 2, or you could watch after we conclude on YouTube as well.
That's awesome, man. I'm going to have to tune in for that. Thursday night at 9 p.m., like always, we've got WDW News Tonight. Our premiere show with news, games, and all sorts of other fun bits. I believe this is the last time we are playing the math game. This is the farewell to the math game this week. So if you're a fan of math, I'm sorry, but it's over. If you're Jason. Friday morning, we've got Cooking with Nick. I don't know what he's going to be cooking this week. Daniel, has he told us yet what he's cooking?
Beef stew.
Really?
No, I have no idea.
No, he's
totally
making it up.
I'm making that up.
But Nick enjoys cooking food from the parks, and it's generally a good time had by all. So check that out if you haven't yet. Friday at 11 a.m. And then 9:30 that night, we've got Whose Cue Is It Anyway, which may be kind of similar in name to Whose Line Is It Anyway. This is yet another show where the points are made up. And the jokes don't matter. I've completely botched that. Everything is made up and the points don't matter. Just like me spieling.
Yes. Everything is made up and nothing matters.
Yeah,
nothing matters anymore.
Whose nihilism is it anyway? There we go. Check that out if you're interested in improv comedy. Saturday morning, we've got Locked In with Eric Morton, a nice, wonderful talk show by our own Eric Morton. 8 p.m., we've got The Return of the RPG, starting off the Tomorrowland Travesty. Woo! I believe that's the name of the whole arc for this season, which is going to be really fun. I've seen some behind-the-scenes stuff for that. It's going to be a ton of fun. Sunday morning, we've got some prequel love going on. I assume that's the Star Wars prequels with Nick and Jessica. And then 8 p.m., we've got Pressing Issues, the return of our long-form discussion that you might remember from the old days of the podcast. It's that same kind of concept going on there. But now it's a YouTube live show, so you can watch and listen along. That is going to do it for this week, folks. Thank you all for joining us. And a big thank you to all of our wigs, which is... That graphic is supposed to play and not pause. Wigs is how we refer to the WDWNT Interglobe Society members, or our patrons. You can head on over to patreon.com/WDWNT. There we go. /WDWNT to get access to our post show, the post show for News Tonight, and a whole host of other benefits. We've been finding old parks maps, pamphlets, scanning them in, all sorts of cool stuff, and putting it up on there for you folks to check out. So if you haven't checked that out yet, I highly recommend you head over patreon.com/WDWNT. All right, thank you folks for checking us out. If you are watching on Crowdcast, we will be live with the post show in just a moment. If you're in YouTube, head over to Crowdcast now, because we are going to be switching over to that. Otherwise, we will see you all next week. See ya.
Bye.
Sivaco!
Dun, 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 dun. Ba, 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 bum.